We're all good. Lovely. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hey, ho. Great to see you all here tonight. What a crowd. Fastest lady of beer. Okay. So this is week 5. If you're still in some form of holiday hangover mode, you're not alone. It's not what? No sound. Kelly has no sound. Others have no sound. Hi, Robin. Neil, is it Kelly the only one who has no sound? Can I just get hands up? Yeah, what about the others? There we go. Thanks for the eagle eyes, guys. That's appreciated. Okay. So today, week 5, we've all had a bit of a break, hopefully, or a catch-up, or some moment to pause, deal with the very many things that happen in our lives that aren't the assignments that we're supposed to be writing in uni. But today I want you guys to have the opportunity to think about your own academic practice in terms of how you organise yourself to do readings and how you manage your time. And I've called it plod or binge, project management for students, and academic writing and referencing tips and tricks, because these are some of the things that I think have been coming up, and it's been really interesting to see what people have identified as things that they'd like to work on. One thing I can say for sure is we're not going to have enough time to deal with everybody's desires within the 2 hours this evening, but I can assure you that I would love to help you guys with any specific questions you have. Please ask them and tag me on the Google Plus community. If you ask them there, it's brilliant, because I think other students get to benefit from my answers then, and we get to have a sense of shared ignorance, which is nicer than feeling that you're alone. So I will do my best to give you guys some concrete tips today, some abstract thinking, some reflective thinking, and some pointers as to places you can go to answer some of these questions yourselves or to find somebody else who can help you. So those are my aims for today. And as my preference for running these sorts of workshops, I really encourage you to get out a notebook and to do your own note-taking while I'm talking, if I'm not doing a directly interactive section, because I think a huge amount of the learning value of this session is going to be in the way you yourself think about some of the questions I'm going to pose. And so whatever your favourite type of note-taking, whether that's dot points, whether that's sketchnoting, whether that's coming up with a grid and doing some form of logical bingo, come up with something that'll help keep you engaged, because I think that's where you're going to really get the benefit. Okay, so let's go. All right, so the contents of today's class, I'm going to talk about reading quite a lot, because it's something that people really struggle with and also don't seem to know what to do about it, apart from some people thinking that they need to go and read a speed reading book, and that's how they're going to improve things. And those speed reading books are really bad, so don't think that that's the solution. I find a lot of people really just don't know how to grasp the reading issue. So we're going to focus a little bit on that and talk about time management, note-taking and writing at the end. Okay, so what to read? All right, so out to the class. What should you read? Oh, this is a good question.
Yeah, do you mean at university? Because I'm reading a really good C.S. Lewis novel, but I don't think you want to know about that.
Well, the question is, should you read the C.S. Lewis novel?
I think I definitely should, and I actually wouldn't sleep unless I read it. I usually fall asleep reading it.
Okay. And what else is the benefit from reading fiction books?
I think it spurs my imagination a lot.
Spurs your imagination? What else? Relaxes you? Yep. What else? Actually, maybe we could get everyone together in one table, possibly. Is that okay? Just to make the whole microphone situation easier. We're not a vast crowd. Oh, you will. Look, there's 3 chairs, 1 table. Community. Oh, what does that online crew say? Oh, great. Here we go. Online class. Kaz, inspires and challenges preconceived notions. Good. Most of what is suggested we read before class if we're referring to our courses. Yep. Good. Study reading is different from leisure reading. Good. Sarah, how is study reading different from leisure reading? That's a really good identification. And while Sarah's writing that down, so we had other thoughts about fiction. What was our fiction comment? Now we're settled. Ish.
It can help to increase your vocabulary and expose you to some new ideas or situations.
Good, good. Any others? One of the big comments that's made by people who are writers is that when they read fiction, they get better at writing. Does anyone feel like after they've read an author that they think is a good writer, they actually feel like their writing gets better?
Well, it depends what you read, though. I remember when I was a young girl and I read lots of Nancy Drew books, and then I could tell that my stories were sounding like a Nancy Drew book.
So how many hours a day do you spend on Facebook reading? Because if you think about it, if you think about your total amount of minutes with your eyes on text reading, if the number of minutes you're spending is on Facebook is higher per day than the number of minutes you spend reading, say, a novel, or the recommended readings for the unit, or something other that's been written with care, does your brain become more Nancy Drew-like or worse? Right?
Facebook's like not thinking.
Do you want to grab a mic just so that we can share? No, that's okay.
Facebook is like not thinking reading. It's like reading a magazine. It's like the reading you do when you're not reading.
Right, and how much of our day is now spent in either reading texts or SMSs or Facebook? Yeah.
I wouldn't like to think how much is mine, but I would like to say that sometimes through Facebook I can find some very good articles that I do actually think about. So, obviously statuses, status updates, etc., don't require that level of thinking. But I found some great articles, mostly by the New York Times and things that have made me think quite deeply.
Yeah. Right, so a lot of people, they use Facebook to, their friends post links, and the articles they link to, if they're good friends, are of high quality, and so perhaps journalism is a reasonable form of writing. What's the judgment on journalistic writing? What do you guys think about it? Thumbs up in the room? Any criticism of it?
Depends on the journal, the newspaper.
So the writing written predominantly on the web to report on news stories, I would call journalistic. Obviously there are different types of journalistic writing, but I would say that predominantly the writing we read when we get linked to news stories via Facebook would be not of, say, the New Yorker standard, I would say. I'll just have a look quickly online, see what everyone's saying. Structured. Aha, that's the difference between the reading we do for leisure and the reading we do for our courses. Good. Journalism has an agenda. Yes? One of the things that we find is really troubling as teachers is we're finding that students, when they submit an essay, write as though it's a web journalistic piece. And that is to say, one or two sentences are considered a paragraph. There's no careful adjudication of theme or topic per paragraph. There's not a coherent argument that flows through. Instead, it's just like a bunch of quotes that have been thrown together at the page, which seems to suffice for journalistic requirements because most journalistic types of reporting are descriptive and really not analytic. And so it's really dangerous if most of your reading time is spent reading words that don't reflect the values of writing that you hope to achieve in your professional life. Of course, we're all reading magazines in the hairdresser and whatever, so I'm clearly not talking about that. I speak really from my own experience, noticing very, very vividly how from the moment Facebook turned up, my reading habits went downhill. I mean, really badly, and it really requires a very, very, very strong amount of will for me to not fall into the trap of poor reading habits. So, sort of flag it right at the beginning. Okay, it's close to what we're talking about tomorrow night. What are we talking about tomorrow night?
Evaluation of information and information sources. So,
Yeah, right on. Well, see, this is interesting. I would differentiate between what I'm talking about here, which is the I guess almost the quality of the words and the writing style over anything that the words are really trying to say. So I'm not even adjudicating journalism for the ideas. The ideas might be solid, but the kind of grammar you get in typical journalistic sentences is just so basic. You know, it's nothing to model yourself on. You don't discover a new word. Like when you're reading fiction, you discover new words all the time. You're like, oh, what does that mean? And you go rushing, I don't know about you guys, but I go rushing off to a dictionary and I'm like, ooh, delicious, you know. And then I chastise myself for not reading more, you know. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to tell you guys when you are considering reading, and it's something I often sort of get to, is to start by thinking. Before you go search the web for an article to answer your assignment question, before you actually go to the core readings for the unit and feel that obligation, that kind of compulsive obligation to download, print, store, package, get out the highlighter and go like maniac reading robot to put all that information into your brain like a good student. People often approach reading robotically in the sense that they simply feel that it's there, therefore they must do. So the first thing I want you to do is to question the value of anything, including anything recommended for you, to you. Because I can tell you right now, your teacher has to recommend a reading without really knowing who you are. We don't know whether you've been working at Brisbane Library for 2 years as a librarian or a librarian's assistant or a person in a library space, or whether you have been working as an artist for 40 years and this is the first time you've been thinking about academic study since you left high school, or whether you are working in a related information field but not library specific. Like, we just don't know your background, which means that any reading could be anything from totally irrelevant to you to incredibly beneficial. And you actually have to assess every single reading relevant to you, which actually means you need to approach any of the readings with a good understanding of where you're at in order to adjudicate the value of that reading to you. So no readings are mandatory readings, even if they're recommended. Unless you're explicitly told there is an examination on this reading at the end of the semester, which you won't find very much in this degree. And some of us still have study habits from a time when we had to do examinations on everything. Therefore, there is a part of the devil in the back of our brains that chastises us and makes us feel terribly guilty if we don't do everything as recommended. It feels like we've somehow failed ourselves or our education, like if we haven't read the stuff. Or that there's some missing key that we have, you know, we won't be able to unlock the final door, right? The key that unlocks the final gate at the back of the castle, that goes through the tunnel, that gets to the secret staircase, that takes us to the top of the tower, that shows us all the stuff. There is no reading that will be that unlocking key. None. But there will be some readings that will change your life and change you and change who you are and what you think. But you haven't got the infinite amount of time or minutes to read all of the readings. Therefore, you need, before you get to it, to even make a decision about the likelihood of it being that kind of transformative reading experience for you. Or that particular reading that's going to just get you over the marking line to get through that assignment. Okay. So start by thinking. And not just think about it, map your thoughts. So either start with some post-its, or start with a sketch note, or start with a mind map, or start with just a piece of paper and a pen and some sentences that are about what kinds of stuff you think you need to know that you might need to go and find out about. It's a really good thing to get into reflective writing exercises where you're like, okay, I've got to go and get some readings. What kind of readings do I need to go and get? What sorts of information needs do I have? Start with the things that you know at this stage and then go and seek evidence for and against your ideas. So, for example, you might be passionate. Somebody posted a really lovely diagram on the Google Plus community of their art library. Oh, it's beautiful. It was so inspirational. You know, it made me just think, oh, you know, wow. So from these moments, then you sort of start constructing your identity maybe and start thinking about, well, suppose I am this person who might in the future make an art library such that my imagination constructed in that wick. what kinds of directions might I go, given I can read so many different articles, and given that my assignment gives me latitude and affords me the opportunity to suggest creative alternatives to library spaces or online information services, why don't I do my online information service on some form of art outreach program? How amazing, right? You could construct your whole course assignments around some form of future library goal that was super interesting for yourself. And you would get to read all this interesting literature that was the intersection of art education and libraries, and delicious, you know? So much more interesting than just libraries, you know? I mean, I kind of like libraries, so I'm not, opposed to just plain old libraries, but somehow there's a special magic that makes you want to read when the things that you're constructing for yourself mesh with your interests. Okay. Oh, yes, there, Kelly, good. Yes, we're all talking about you. Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. Okay. So what to read? So in order to read strategically for research, you need to find information valuable to your specific assignment, research or project, and not merely valuable in your broad topic area. So a very typical thing students experience is they think that they should read everything on a topic, right? This semester I'm supposed to learn about information retrieval, everything. This semester I'm supposed to learn about library collections, everything. But really, what you should read is the information relevant to your assignment, research or project. There'll be plenty. There's enough to occupy your time if you keep that narrow focus. One of the tricks I have is whenever I come across a PDF that is not directly relevant to a task, but I find kind of interesting, I save it into a sort of folder, which is to read later folder.
Do you read them?
You never read them later, but it makes you feel better.
What about all the great stuff that you want to know?
Print it out, put it in a folder, put it next to the toilet. Every time you go to the loo, open up your to be read later folder and read something from it. By all means, come up with a habit that enables you to read broadly, but don't have it as your regular study operation, because when you do that, you find that you won't be as effective or as efficient as you want to be. Everybody wants to be more efficient at getting through their assignments. Most of us don't know how to do it. So reward yourself, Say, okay, if I manage to get 2 paragraphs done tonight, then I'm going to absolutely settle down in my chair with a hot cup of tea and read that really interesting side article I thought looked terrific. But what often happens is our reading juices get used up being diverted on that other article over here, and then it's not like we get more energy for reading after we've read that one. Yeah, and then you sort of have this mixed experience where you're sort of like, I'm really happy I read that cool article, but the dread, the building of dread and the building of stress from not having actually done the thing you needed to do. So this is really about a certain kind of ability to constantly self-discipline. Self-discipline and self-reward as well, how to do that for ourselves. A lot of us manage children. Why are we so bad at managing ourselves? Or cats, or dogs, or, we're able to boss other people around. So, important word here, relevance. So how do you determine what is going to be relevant? I'm going to throw this out to the crowd. So you guys with the mic at the table and the folks at home, how do you determine what is relevant to your assignment or to your research or to your project? What kinds of strategies do you have?
They have to be fairly current, usually, because
Currency?
we're in technology, emerging technologies, and we need to have things that are current. We also need to have things that are well referenced and cited, and the keywords have to match up.
Good.
With the assessment.
Nice. Good. Yeah, it's a good starting point to say, yep, this meets my first filters for relevance. Good. Great.
I think what I want to write, and then I look for articles to support that. I do like a really rough draft, and then I'll find something that will support my theories.
I like that a lot. Writing your ideas down first and then going out to find informational literature that might either support or deny your original idea is a great way to make sure you're getting relevant stuff. Good.
Can I just back that up? Because I came from a history background where it is read everything first and then make up your mind. And when you first said that to me last semester, I was so scared that I could possibly have my own thoughts. But and then find the information. And I tried, I was like, Kate's not right. Mm-mm, I'm right. And for anyone who's out there online, honestly, if you come from the same background as me with that kind of mentality, like, get rid of it now, because it makes your university so much more efficient, because you just cut back on so much time. The amount of times you start reading a PDF and you go, oh, this isn't relevant, but then you think, this is the one with the key to get to the tower. So you keep going. But one of mine is also just, even when I've done that, always reading abstracts and determining then, because 9 times out of 10 you can tell whether it will be relevant or not from the abstract.
Great advice. Thank you. How about online? How are we going? Been current, apparently in the 90s, a lot written about bad teeth, mental health, little new stuff. Yes, well, this is interesting, isn't it? Yes, topics come into fashion and then go away again. But I think it's a good, what we call heuristic or rule of thumb to go for recency. But I do think that you can, if you can tailor all the other factors of information search down, then often you can open the parameter of date. You know, so if you get your keywords really well settled, then you can sometimes do quite an interesting historical search. And that can become relevant. It's just probably not the predominant information you need for these sorts of assignments, that's all. Because we're not, as my dear friend Emma Nelm says in the library, she's like, we're not saving babies here, you know, like whenever the librarians are in a fluster or a twitter over some form of document delivery disaster, you know, and it's really like, doesn't actually matter. Like, like, we like to think we're important, but really, it's just a document, you know, unlikely to really affect people. Okay, good. So keep chewing over that relevancy idea, because it's something that we...
Just something else. When I find an article that really meets my needs, then I look at what they have cited, where they have got their information from, and then go through that as well, because I find that then you have some flow through in your assignment as well.
And it can be really fast.
Yes, it's
like
really
you can
fast.
Go abstract, keyword, bam, bam, bam. Really great tip. I know most of you will already know this, but when I discovered it quite late, I was sort of blown away. It's just searching for keywords in PDFs in the search button. Instead of printing out documents and scanning manually, which was an old-fashioned method, to use that search within a PDF. And then you just go straight to the paragraph. Like, there might be 3 paragraphs that actually mention the key topic you're interested in, and then you're barely even reading the whole article. So this required a big change for me, because I'm like the demon on the back, have to read everything, every word. I'm like a terrible person if I don't. So for me, this felt like a deep cheat. But when you use it in the right way, it's not. Okay. So with an assignment, you really want to make sure you have a good sense of what the unit coordinator is asking for. When I was working in the library, I had students all the time who had never even thought about looking at the unit learning outcomes to find out what they were supposed to be demonstrating as outcomes for the unit, and then looking at the criteria sheet and how those two things interacted to really get what's the rubric going to be for me getting a good mark on this assignment. So putting yourself in your teacher's shoes is a really good strategy. So say to yourself, well, if I was told I had a special, like if my teacher came up to me and said, look, you're a really good student. I'm actually a bit short of time. I've got to go to a conference and maybe a Madonna concert. So can I give you $1,000 and could you mark these 20 assignments for me? Would you do that? Maybe 1,000 is too little. 10,000. 10,000. I'm feeling flush. I've got a big research grant. Would you do it for 10,000? Great. So here's the 20 assignments. Could you just mark those, give it your best shot, and then I'll have a look at them before I hand them back. Imagine you had that job of marking your peers' assignments. What would put you to sleep? What would wake you up? What were you hoping to see? And what were you dreading? Now, don't be that person that produces the words you yourself don't want to read. Teachers always find teaching satisfying when they learn something from their students. So be brave and offer something that maybe it's a bit daring, right? But I can tell you, and this is me, like I'm not saying I'm the same as every teacher, but I know I will give like 10 spelling mistakes for one half-baked, half-original idea that was an attempt to do something in a different way than I'd seen it before, with some attempt at some evidence, even if it was a hedged attempt at evidence, where it's like, I've got this idea that art libraries are going to be the future, we're not going to need to have technical libraries anymore, and here's my rationale and my argument, and here's the way I think the future could be. Well, it could be wrong, but in the process of trying to prove a case, it becomes an interesting journey, and those are usually the kinds of articles we want to read, right? Things that change our sense of what could be or might be. Or so think about, what are the theories that your unit coordinators want to see that you've got a grasp of? Any history of the topic that they want you to have a good understanding about? Categories or classifications and ways of carving up the information environment? Do they want you to be aware of particular examples or case studies or hypothetical scenarios? Do they want you to demonstrate creative thinking or future planning? So take a moment, because that's really going to affect the way you use literature or the kinds of literature you decide not to bother with. And when you're doing research here, a lot of you guys are going to do projects. And when you do projects, you're going to be expected to come up with a research question. Research questions are wonderful because they both give you the scope for your research and they constrain you from having to do things that aren't within that scope. So here's an example. In what ways does evolutionary psychology explain how and why memes get virally transmitted on the internet? In this particular question, you have these theoretical constructs. So theoretical constructs are phrases or single words that are used in the literature to describe some phenomena. Okay? And you need to have these in a good research question. So there's a jigsaw puzzle I've got on this slide, and this comes from the AIRS website. It doesn't come through very well on the slide, so I'll just tell you, AIRS, airs.library.qt.edu.au is from that. All the information on the AIRS website, this is the Advanced Information Retrieval, well, actually, it's now called the Advanced Information Research Skills course. It's all a mandatory 4-point unit for all PhD students, but it's really relevant for those of us who are hungry for better research skills and better information retrieval skills. So if you want a more advanced approach to these things, it's highly worthwhile. And it's the kind of things we do in libraries. So if you're interested in possibly being a research librarian, or you're interested in whether you'd like to be involved in teaching activities, teaching researchers in libraries, it's worth looking at the curriculum there because, yeah. What's the code? AIRS, IFN620 is the unit code. And it's airs.library.qt.edu.au, I think. There's videos, modules, PowerPoints, Radio National style interviews by yours truly, and of course amazing things. So it's a very well considered unit, as I said, and it's run by the librarians. So anyway, that's a little shout out to AIRS. Anyway, so your theoretical constructs, they have to be recognisable in the literature you're searching. Your question needs to transcend the data that you're using to study. So if you actually want to go into a school and find out about how the primary school students are accessing the internet, that's your sort of data, but your question has got to be kind of bigger than that. It shouldn't be just about the Grovely public primary schools. It might be something like, how does the Montessori educational pedagogy affect information literacy in primary school students? It's a bigger research question that you use a case study to try and get some data on to then furnish your argument about it. Significance. Your question should have some significance. It should matter. Right? It should matter that we know the difference between a Montessori approach to education and any other kind when it comes to information literacy. So you need to be able to justify the significance of your question if you're going out to ask it. Why does it matter? Who's it going to help? And normally, it's a little bit like going doing fortune telling or cold calling. When it comes to significance, usually it's about money, and make people richer, health, and make people healthier, make us wiser, make us happier. There's only there's about a handful of things that people want in the world, and research questions are going to be significant in only a handful of ways. But you need to figure out where it is that your research is going to lead. Capacity to surprise. You shouldn't do any research on any project that you already feel like you know the answer to. If you already feel like you know that the Montessori kids are unable to use a computer, and that all your research is going to do is to give evidence of that, it's not going to make you very passionate or probably a very good researcher. So always be somebody that's on the edge of your own understanding on a topic if you can. Ask a genuine question where the answer is unknown, which is why you don't want to ask questions that are lacking robustness. Now, this is a technical term of robustness. This really is just a question that can't be answered with a yes or no. So instead of saying Montessori education leads to information illiteracy, you would say, what kinds of impacts does Montessori have on information literacy? Because that affords you the opportunity to say that it has positive, negative, interesting, complex kinds of sophisticated sort of ways of responding. Okay, so this is how to write a research question. As I said, please go to the AIRS website, Module 1, if you're interested in improving your own capacity to write these questions. If you have an interest or a thought that you might like to do more academic research in your future, and certainly a lot of librarians that are successful today do write journal papers for submission, so they are engaged in original research. It is a very interesting and exciting area. And as I said, it's a free resources you guys can access, so there's no reason not to enjoy them. I've got some library examples of good questions here. So how does organisational culture affect change management in academic libraries? What is the relationship between information management strategies and communication policies in Australian state libraries? What are the mechanisms by which Queensland primary school students achieve information literacy? Sarah, very interesting you talk about citation scores. I'm a philosopher and I can assure you that philosophy articles do not get cited in a way that science articles get cited, and yet philosophers would argue that what we write takes a lot more energy and care than a lot of these science articles. So there are big problems with bibliometrics, big problems, as indicators of quality. They are indicators, but they're not necessarily indicators of value to society as a whole. So yeah, I'm with you, Sarah, absolutely. So those are some examples of questions, and once you get into the swing of writing them, they become quite easy. And so right now I've just got an activity for you guys. I want you to just try and write a research question. You don't have to share it, although you can, so feel free to share it online. And folks in the room, just take a moment and just come up with your own bodgy research project right now. You can try using these grammatical structures to help you. You find that if you just start writing, choose one of them and then just start writing some research question. I'll give you like 2 minutes. So folks at home, I'm not talking, that's right, thanks Ellie. We're just coming up with our own research question. So use the grammatical forms on the slide to see if you can come up with your own research question. It can be library related, but you can talk about chocolate ice cream or dogs or Nutella, perfect. Do comedic ones is absolutely perfect. Suppose you did have the kind of vast repositories of Nutella analysis that you were wishing for. Hay spread, almond spread, cashew spread. Is the prohibitive cost of cashews really the mitigating factor against making it the predominant nut spread over peanut butter? Good. Robin, thanks for writing one down. How have research support services changed in the past 3 years? Okay, anyone got any comments on that as a question? Ways to improve it, things that are good about it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Do they need to have more theoretical constructs, or can they just have one?
Right, so what do you think the answer to that is? Do you need more than one theoretical construct in a good research question?
More.
Probably more.
To show connections. between things, maybe.
Really, the main thing here is that you just would struggle, I think, to get the kind of information that would be helpful to answering that question in its current form, I think. So you might want to know specific factors about research support services. And you might want to talk about academic libraries. Maybe it's implied in that question it's academic libraries, but sometimes making what the domain explicit then also helps you with keywords that you can put into databases to get better results back. Okay, we've just gone past it. Can we open the chat window a bit? Oh, I was just going to try and open the chat window a bit. Oh, is this how you do it? I think so. Okay, good. All right. How do online search engines affect basic scientific literacy in the community? I like the, there's kind of implied ideas in some of these. So the word basic, what's the difference between scientific literacy and basic scientific literacy? Right? It's good to unpack these things. In the process of writing a research question, you'll find that you can rewrite it many, many times. It usually takes 3 to 6 months to write a good research question, just because you need to go out there and kind of keep thinking and researching and refining before you really get into something that's of high quality. The effects of chocolate on new mother's happiness. Yes, indeed. Now, this is interesting. What I like about Kelly's question is that he talks about the effects of chocolate, but it doesn't presuppose that the mother is going to be happy, right? So it might be that she becomes unhappy or happy, so it's good to not direct the outcome of your research. Does anyone in the room have a question they want to share? No, it's fine. Yeah? Yeah? Go for Mike. Yep.
What effects does a pet have on people who are living alone in regard to their health, particularly their mental health?
Good. Very good. Yeah, I like the narrowing down to mental health. I think that's good. Yeah. Great.
Can I do mine?
Yes?
What are the strategies used by unschooling students to develop information literacy?
It's unschooling. That's the version of schooling that's like homeschooling but unschooling.
It's a version of schooling where kids tend to do what they want.
Yeah, good. Nice. No, it's a really interesting area. Super interesting. And yeah, good. Great. Okay. I think this is excellent. So you guys all seem to, well, not necessarily all of you, but everyone here that I think is giving it a go. I think you'll find it really useful. And I think when you get an assignment, it's worth writing for yourself the assignment brief through your own understanding of the topic. Because all of these assignments have a very wide number of directions you can go. So if you can narrow it down to a particular research question, you'll find that you can then write that research question in the introduction, and then you can actually answer that research question in your conclusion, and then your whole assignment will have a level of cohesiveness that is very satisfying. Okay. Yes, Facebook and depression, very frightening. I think I definitely get depressed from reading too much Facebook. Particularly with like it's weird, it's like I have lots of feminist friends who post lots of articles about how terrible the world is for women. It's not good for me. Like it doesn't help me. It doesn't help me to find out about statistics about women not succeeding. I'm like, if I don't read that and then I just go and live, maybe I'll be one of those outliers who doesn't fulfill the statistical expectation. But it's from friends I love who are really hoping to change the world for the better. So yes. Okay. All right, so now we've done some pretty good work on setting up a situation where we might get somewhere close to actually feeling like we ought to be reading something. Once we know what topic we're working on, the research question and the domain and the specifics and things like unschooling and Nutella and things like that, now we need to build understanding. So the first things we read are the things that build our understanding, right? So go to textbooks, guides, overview books, encyclopedias, dictionaries, get the glossary out, find out what the professionals use to describe the thing that you're interested in, the theoretical ideas that you're interested in, maybe described differently depending on the database you use. So go to the specific database glossary or, what's the word? A thesaurus. Databases have thesauri. If you're working in the medical area, you'll find that mental illness might be described as psychopathology or some other kind of term. So you want to go and investigate those possibilities using these reference books, these structural categorization books that give you the classificatory terms that define your area of interest. You want to be able to, in an elevator, describe the geography of the information you're interested in. Not necessarily have the answers, but be able to say, look, there are 3 different camps on unschooling. Right? There's the camp that believes that while we allow our children to do anything they want, we try to provide in the environment the kinds of things we think they should be playing with. Right? So we have the iPad, but we have the Lego, and we have the wooden blocks, and we have the opportunity for kids to cook, and we have the opportunity for kids to sew and to build and to construct. That's our obligation. So there's those people. Then there are other people who think kids have to go out and find everything. So we put them into environments which don't have anything other than what they are in them, and we expect children to discover in them what they wish. If they want something, they'll ask. We should trust them, you know, and stop putting ovens in their vicinity. So, you know, oh yeah, I'm going to start washing clothes, woo! So, you know, you want to be able to describe the layout of this area over a dinner party to your grandmother, to the dog, first of all. That gives you the map of where else to go. And also read recent review articles in scholarly journals. Now, review articles are a specific kind of article which reviews other articles on that topic. Different disciplines have different kinds of review articles. So in medicine, you have systematic reviews, which are often very scientifically grounded ways of doing statistical meta-analysis on previous research in an area. Library science, you won't have that so much, but you'll still get articles that try to go through and analyse the previous literature. A great place for this is a student's PhD. So go to ProQuest Dissertations as a database and look up your terms in there to find a dissertation on the topic area that you might be interested in. Because people writing PhDs have to do an awful lot of background research on the topic in order to justify what they're doing. And you'll often find they put a lot more effort into explaining concepts than researchers do in regular articles. QUT ePrints has a wonderful selection of dissertations you can look at that will really inform you on topics and concepts that you might have come across in your education here, because of course the students here and become teachers, and the teachers teach and suggest articles, and so you could get a whole theoretical framework idea by reading the theses of students. Yeah.
Hey, I was looking for an overview of a topic for another assignment, and I thought it would be a good idea to type in literature review into my search thing, but it didn't really come up with anything.
Yeah, right.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah, good. Yes, it's really interesting. Sometimes you can put in the type of document like bibliography. So you can sometimes write in bibliography into your catalogue search and pull up a kind of thing. But literature review, depends what database we're using.
Emerald.
Emerald?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about Emerald. I don't know if Emerald has that as a distinct category.
No, it didn't have it as a distinct category, so I put the topic and then literature review, but it really didn't.
It'll usually be a drop-down or a checkbox as an option down the side on the filters, and you'll find that other databases, so maybe try the bigger ones, like the big aggregate ones, like ProQuest and stuff like that, or Science Direct.
Yeah, okay, good to know.
Give it a go, yeah. Oh, question.
Are we doing IFN600, 611 together?
Yes.
Yes. And you weren't able to find the literature review on the topic that you were looking for?
Yeah, for that assignment. And then, yes, I thought that was a good place to get, you know, an overview of the topic.
Right.
So I thought I would put in literature review, but really nothing sort of came up when I did that.
Right, okay.
If you have any specific database questions, it's really worthwhile using the Chat to a Librarian service, QT Library, because all of the people who are employed there, it's their job to answer these questions, and they'll go and find out for you somewhere, and a liaison librarian will go, like, I've worked there next to the Chat librarian, and Chat librarian's like, do you know blah, blah, blah? They'll get up off their chair and they'll rush over to a liaison librarian and they'll ask. And everyone's got a different expertise, and each of these databases have their own silly, finicky nonsense. And you can discover the answers to these finicky things, and then you become empowered with that knowledge. So it is worth asking.
Yeah, so
That
it was a good strategy though, even though it didn't work the way I did it, to actually search for literature.
It's definitely a good strategy, but you definitely want to use it more as like a filtering checkbox option rather than putting it into the main Boolean search terms.
Yeah.
Boolean search terms are not a good place for it. Yeah. Okay. Now once you've done that original sort of look, then you want to think again. So whatever you thought before, you want to think again. And you want to map your new thoughts. So take your old concept map and write a new one. Look at the changes of your own thinking. Or if you'd spent 25 minutes writing down your own thoughts to do a draft, sit down and write another 25-minute draft on what your new sense of where you should be going should be. So then seek and find better evidence for and against your ideas. Once you've done that, you're now in a position to do some sort of power information seeking in terms of cited reference searching on highly respected book or article recommended by your unit coordinator or supervisor. That's going to give you some really good insights on the current literature. Get things that are highly specific, high impact author. If they work at Harvard, if they go Google and hunt down the authors and find out what their CV is, find out where they're publishing. So you should start building up a cluster of authors that you know are writing very high quality stuff. Get to know which the high quality journals are. ERA is an Australian government initiative to rank all the journals in Australia according to research output quality. You can look to see what the A+ or A journals are in your area. Our area, I think, is 08 is the code, and you can actually just see it. And you're like, oh, if this is in, Australian Library Journal, it's not as good as the Australian Academic Library Journal or something. I don't know. Sorry, being a bit vague, but you can see all the journals get graded from A+ down to like B, C, and D, and often they're all peer reviewed. Often they're all meeting the basic criteria for quality information, but actually the actual level of quality is higher in some of the journals than others. Interestingly enough, the shorter the journal title, the higher quality it generally is. So the Journal of Information Technology is generally going to be higher quality than the Journal of Information Technology and Society. Right? In philosophy, the Journal of Philosophy, very high. Mind, super high. Right? The bigger the title, it's just a rubric, it's just a heuristic, it's not always the case. When you're looking at information, make sure it's critical and comprehensive and objective, and of course it needs to be referenced, accurate and peer-reviewed, but that's the bottom of the pyramid. There's a lot further way up to go. Okay, so what is the purpose of your reading? You need to know the purpose of your reading and to align your reading strategy to your purpose. These things run side by side to each other. You always need to know why you're reading and what kind of strategy you're going to use in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish. So, purpose of reading. What are you looking for? Are you looking for an argument? Are you looking for evidence? Are you looking for background information on something? If you don't know, then you're putting yourself in a perilous reading environment where you're just going to sort of read everything and think you need to know it all. Why are you reading? Are you reading for clarification? Because you're not quite sure exactly. Like when we check Wikipedia for something, we want to clarify our knowledge. You're trying to get depth. You want to get right in there and be like, I want to know everything that's ever been written on unschooling. Right into the nitty-gritty. I want to know everything. Or inspiration. You're like, I want to find out somebody who's doing something really wild in this space, you know? Somebody who's doing unschooling in a caravan in Antarctica. That's what I want to find out about. That's the thing I could use in my assignment. I've got the other stuff, right? This really help you with reading as you're going through an assignment, because at different parts of the assignment writing process you will have different kinds of information you need, and you won't be reading the same way for all these different kinds of information. So align your reading strategy to your purpose. So how do you adjust your reading strategies? Well, look, here's some examples of aligning purpose to strategies. If what you're looking for is an argument, and why you're reading is for clarification, then the reading strategy to use might be to skim introductions and conclusions. But if what you're looking for is evidence and why you're reading is depth, then maybe you want to scan or search for particular keywords. Because then, for example, if you're searching in that PDF on a particular keyword, you can find as much evidence as there is in that text. Of course, searching inside ebooks is even greater, right? So find a great ebook on a subject and then search for the term. And then just like write up a little, spreadsheet or whatever of every time that idea is mentioned in that book. Get a lot of information that way. But they're really different. You notice how different these reading strategies are really different for these different purposes, you know? Okay. Does anyone have any questions before I move on? Online? Nope. Okay. All right. So, reading efficiently. Lots of people want to read more efficiently. Lots. So, here's how to read a journal article in 25 minutes. Put the timer on. Don't allow yourself any more than this time. 5 minutes on the abstract.
Even if it's a long page?
Yep, absolutely. Even more so if it's a long. Even more so. 5 minutes on the abstract. What are you doing while you're reading that abstract for 5 minutes? 5 minutes is a long time if you put a timer on and you don't check Facebook. And you're not.
For an abstract.
It's a long time, right? It's a paragraph, right? So maybe you don't need 5 minutes for the abstract. Maybe that's wasted time. 5 minutes on the introduction. Then jump to the discussion and the conclusion. Miss the middle. And then a 5-minute note to your future self. What this does is it gives you a scaffolded experience of that reading, not definitive experience of that reading. It's not, you're not going to go to the exam on that journal article and get it 100% correct if they ask you about any aspect of what was in that journal article. But luckily life does not consist of exams on the specifics of every aspect of a journal article. There is no such exam. But what it gives you in 25 minutes, especially if you do that final 5 minutes, that is the most crucial one, the note to your future self. It's where you tell your future self what is valuable about this article, to how it should be used later. Now, there are exceptions to this if you are specifically interested in methodology or if something is specific, like very specific in terms of the domain and the area that you're interested in, you have a particular need within the methodology and the results and everything else. But a lot of the time when we're first reading an article, we actually just need to get a sense of what that article is trying to claim. What is it trying to say? And then we can go back into it. We can allocate more time to that article if we need it. But most of the time, for most articles, you don't need any more than about 25 minutes. As long as you are strict with yourself in the amount of time you spend on each part, and you write that note to your future self at the end. And that note to your future self should be the direct quotations or arguments you thought were valuable there. It's kind of like the annotated bibliography. You ought to be able to write an annotated bibliography entry pretty much in that 5 minutes at the end of 20 minutes of reading. That's a skill to develop. So it's a really good thing to practice. Even if you find it really hard to start off with, the more you practice this really limited way of reading, you will find you get through a lot more readings, you'll find your knowledge of the area increases a lot, and then you are much more able to tackle other kinds of tasks. And if this particular framework doesn't work for you, by all means change it. If you need 1 minute for the abstract and you choose 3 minutes for the introduction, but as long as the red. Oh man! Wow. Thank you. I pressed it. It was red. It was red. It was red. Unbelievable. Okay, thank you, dear class students. Okay. Okay. Oh no, did it take off my... okay. Okay, great. Back now. Sorry about that. So by all means, make up your own structure for 25 minutes, but just make sure you have at least 5 to 10 minutes at the end for your own future thinking. If you haven't done that, you really haven't done a service to yourself. And too often, students say they've read something, but they've never actually written down their own response to the reading by the time they finish reading it. And sometimes students spend an hour, like they sit there like, I've been reading this one journal article for an hour and a half or 3 hours. They still haven't got to the end of it. Right, they're only on section 2. And they've got maybe they've got lots of notes in the margin or some highlighting. But a lot of the times you're just kind of reading, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a thing you have to do that you haven't done that keeps going on. And you're like an algorithm that can't move to anything else till it's done. You're like, oh, I better not start reading this textbook over here because I haven't finished this reading. You know? What am I going to become? Just a woman who's just with a litter of half-eaten readings behind me, like some form of urchin. Doesn't respect the written word. Oh, you know, horror. You know. Is that who I am? Okay. So how to read a book in 2 hours or less. Okay. This is genuinely great stuff. I say so. I'll eat my hat if you don't find this useful. Put it to the test. Give me some feedback. Tell me if it's dreadful. But you can do it, and you'll be amazed. You can start reading books really, really quickly. So, first thing to do is find out the title of the book and then go and read a book review. Academic book review. Because all academic journals tend to review books in their area, and you can definitely filter by book review. So when you go to QT Quick Find, you can choose book review as a type of product and find out what other people have said about it. It's great. You get other people's synthesis and summary of the arguments in the book. You get their criticism. So you already, and they're short. Book reviews are short. They're only 500 words or so. So you can usually read a book review in a few minutes, and it really gives you an enormous sense of insight into whether you want to read the book, whether that book's going to be relevant to you, and the kinds of, I guess, groundbreaking types of arguments that are supposedly being made in the book. Because that's what the book review's focus is on, is how this book generates new insights into certain problems. And it's better, therefore, than the blurb on the back or things that the publisher might say, because the publisher, of course, is going to say, this is amazing, groundbreaking work, but a reviewer is more likely to say there are some aspects of this book that are groundbreaking and others that are we've seen before, and still others that are poorly argued. So they might be groundbreaking if they were well argued, but they're not in fact well argued. Well, the evidence this author uses is problematic in various ways. So then jump in and start skimming that book. So look at the index and the table of contents, look at the introduction and the conclusion. Find out the approach that the author's going to take on the topic or the material. Again, incredibly helpful because it will give you enough of a scaffolding of both the author's view and reviewer's ideas to enable you then to sort of jump into the content in the middle and feel like you're being respectful of the content, even if you haven't read all of the words inside. Right? But you do need to give yourself like the preface and the introduction. A lot of the times people jump over those and jump straight to the content chapters to try and vault over those preliminaries. And while of course you can certainly do that if you have a specific thing that you want to search for and you want to jump into a book and search under that topic, by all means. But if you feel like you'd like to be able to talk about this book at the dinner table, I hear that people have dinners when they're not on Facebook. If you want to be able to have the art of conversation and actually speak of the latest book by such and so, and be able to speak with respectful understanding of their arguments, then these are the things to do. Now, in terms of reading in detail, then you jump in and you start reading sections relevant to your research, and that's where you would search PDFs for keywords by picking out particular chapters. Writing notes. So how does the author's views impact the answer you give to your research question? So remember, you're probably looking at this book because you're interested in furnishing a particular research project that you're looking at. So the notes you take should be directly relevant to that. And once you've done that, you want to do a cited reference search. So if the book was written in 2009, you want to see who's responded to the book. Obviously, the more recent the book, the less likely it's to be cited, and that's no measure of its quality. Once you've done that, I think you've got a pretty good understanding of what that book's about. And you can do that in 2 hours or less. And then you feel like you've read a book, which is great. It also means you can come back to that book in the future, and it becomes part of your library and part of your retrieval system. No book club. Yes. Of course you can have a book club. Okay. All right. So we've been at it for an hour, so why doesn't everyone get up and stretch their legs and go to the loo and take a moment, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes. We just had a little break. So you timed your break very well. Sorry. No, it's fine. It's fine. We've got that hour mark where
It's like shaking my walls off this lecture.
Yeah, me too.
I can't deal with it.
I was thinking 6 months ago.
It's just so different to how I've understood how I should approach my reading. It's good. But it will take me a while to convince myself.
I wish I'd done it 6 months ago.
Oh, look, if you try to juggle 4 subjects, it's just ridiculous. There's just no way you can do them the service that you would like to. And you can always read more, right? So, I mean, if you actually do all the things that are strategic, then you can always have those places where you do read things just for the heck of them. Just most people, I think, these days spend most of their time procrastinating on Facebook. And then they piss with themselves if they do it. Yeah, playing their mobile phone, the dazzled or bejeweled or yeah, exactly. Or solving everybody else's problems or doing everything for everybody except yourself. Yeah. Maybe that's
And all the unit sites on Facebook, I found it difficult because I was checking the unit sites and I'd be checking what my friends were doing. So it's better now than Google Plus.
Well, because we've got the Google community, and then in 612 we've got the other WordPress site.
Yeah.
I find I'm getting things from everywhere, and so I'm always nervous about missing something. So really the whole round takes forever.
Yeah,
It drives me insane.
it's good to come up with a strategy for yourself.
Yeah.
Be your own manager on that. What's that?
How do you do that? How do you practice that?
Well, there's lots of ways I've done it myself. Things like, at the moment, I'm having a Facebook free month. I find that's very helpful. Just cut off that kind of distraction altogether. Or say, until I've read my writing goal this morning, no social media. Right? So for me, I like to do writing goals as 200 words or 1 hour, whichever comes first. Which is good because it means if I work really quickly and fast, then I can get onto Facebook really quickly. But if it takes me a while, that's also okay. And if I only write 100 words in an hour, that's also fine because I find that you ebb and flow. Everything we're not machines. We don't do routinely all the time. So what is good? It's like exercise and yoga or anything. It's about consistent attention.
Yeah. I turn off all my notifications, so I can only go and have a look at it. When I do go and have a look at it, at that time.
Yeah, no.
Like that. But keeping track of all these other things is hard.
It is hard. It is really hard. And we're all having to change so quickly.
Yeah.
It's just so different every single year. Every 6 months, people are using different techniques.
I've got an Outlook account that's
I've got all of these emails for different reasons. Yeah, right. You can have your emails for 2 years here sent to you, rather than email address. That's what I do. It's one less one to check.
Yeah, no, we get them all sent through. But then you would go through and delete them all for different ones.
Okay.
Anyway.
No, it's good. This is good. All right, let's start again. Very briefly, but I'd like to talk about EndNote in more detail, possibly one-on-one or in small groups. And certainly there are workshops at QT Library does. So if there's a specific energy to learn EndNote, then we can definitely coordinate that.
Yeah, because I did it with you
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start again, and we're going to do a little reflective moment. So I want everyone to pause and just close their eyes, or just start letting themselves just write out in long form on a notepad. What would you do if you had $10 million? Budget it out now. What would you do with that money? Well, what would you do with yourself? I'll give you a couple of minutes. And yes, it's leading somewhere. And this can be absolutely private. No, absolutely no sharing is necessary or part of this process. So please write your own thoughts for yourself. Don't feel any obligation to share that information with anyone. It's absolutely private. But of course you can share it. But I mean, what would it allow you to do or be? What kinds of ways would you change your life? Okay. Next question. What would you do if you only had 6 months to live?
Do I have the $10 million hand?
Yeah, the question was, do you have the $10 million and the 6 months to live? Yes, let's say you do. Let's say that we don't have to worry about money. So, what would you do if you only had 6 months to live? Write it down. Write it down. Some people find it easier to say, what would I not do if I only had 6 months to live? What would you drop immediately? What would you keep doing? And what would you do that you wouldn't have done otherwise? If you're saying travel, what kind of travel? Okay, the third question. What would you do if you could not fail? Fail. You don't have to have the 6-month deadline, death guideline. No. Suppose you're not going to die. Let's suppose that. That sounds nice. You can still have the money if you wish. I invite you to allow yourself to imagine your life without the constraints we put upon them. So if money is a constraint for you, allow yourself. What would you do if you could not fail? Okay, 1 more minute. Add to any of your 3 responses. Sometimes people find that they change their answers to the first question after going through the other questions. So feel free to go back and amend or change or write like a final response. Okay. So why? Why ask these questions? Why do you think I'm asking these questions? Folks online?
Like for me, I don't know, like all 3 of those questions are sort of too far out to even contemplate in a way. Like I have no idea what I'd do for all 3 of those at all. If somebody said, guess what? Everything you ever wished for is going to come true. I'm like, what? Or you got $10 million, you know, or you're going to die in 6 months. So, I guess, so perhaps the exercise is in order to do interesting research, maybe we need to get used to contemplating really huge, kind of hard to answer questions like this. But then again, I don't know, maybe other people think about this stuff a lot and have a ready answer, perhaps. I don't know. That's that's my feeling.
No, this is good. This is an honest response. This is good. So any reactions to that reaction?
I remember our geography teacher made us do something like this on the first day of year 8.
I love it.
And the reason why he made us do it was to show ourselves that we had a lot of the answers within us before we began searching. So to rely on our own ability first and then go from there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Why? Why are we asking these questions?
Are you trying to get us to realise what our actual dreams are and drop out of this course?
Ooh. Very. Kate Davis, don't listen to the recording. I'm the Pied Piper. I'm stealing the students away. I think it is a really important set of questions for doing this course and doing this unit in particular. Yeah.
Just thinking, is it to get us to think?
I just got to say to Kelly, I think Kelly, probably some of her answers are the same as my answers. So
Good. Lovely.
both into art.
And what was the art answers that you had?
Sorry.
Are you willing to share with us the particulars? Or?
For just about all of mine, I had that I would make more art. So
Interesting. Interesting. Any other thoughts about why we did this or what it did to you trying to answer those questions?
My answers were my family who are all overseas, and it made me realise just how important my family are to me, and that's the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
Mine were all family too, and I guess it made me realize that priority over everything else is just spending time with family.
Spending time with family, yeah.
I was about to say I'm super boring, but my answers all more or less stayed the same in terms of, I'd like to work or try and support an industry, travel and spend more time with friends and family.
Yeah, good. I mean, but like that honesty is so important because it should be the thing that drives our actions. Because a lot of the time people live their lives, so Gurdjieff described the way we live our lives as sleepwalkers, that we are walking through our lives without making conscious choices about what we do or why. And if you haven't sat down to think about the fact that your family's that much more of a priority to you than anything else, like the first thing I started doing with that money is paying people's mortgages off. And then I'm like flying my friends to an island for a celebration. Like, I miss my friends and my family so terribly much. These are the things that I get drawn to with spending money. And that is a reflection of my values. And my career choices have been to put my family and my relationships ahead of some other more abstract benefits. So for me personally, if I was to be the shining star in philosophy, I should have probably gone and done a postdoc in Alberta, Canada for 2 years and seen nobody and frozen to death to build up a track record in order to present myself to try and get like a research position at some Midwestern horrible place which has marshmallows in their salads and lived in America with horrible healthcare and terrible social justice and no abortions and probably had this really intense experience to try to pull myself up a totem pole that meant that I didn't get to go to Stradbroke Island over Easter with my family and go surfing. I chose Stradbroke Island. I chose Brisbane. I chose here. What's that?
Over Alberta.
Over Alberta, Canada. There was for me these, and I can stand by my decisions that way. And coming into this profession or your lives, you want to make choices that are conscious choices based on your priorities, and you will find that the way you manage your time will be better if you know what your own priorities are, because your motivation to do anything is affected by how well you know what you actually want.
I was going to say, in response to, I don't know, I find it difficult to answer any of those questions kind of thing, probably because of part of my own history over the last 10 years or however long of being an adult kind of thing, as I don't know. I always found it hard every time you go into a job interview situation or something like that, and people go, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Because I guess probably, maybe in high school, I guess I had a lot of dreams, and then went to uni and that sort of thing, and then the real world steadily crushed everything, one thing after another. But I don't know. It's hard to get yourself into a space perhaps where you actually have some time and go, oh, right, cool, I can kind of settle down and sort of look ahead more. So I guess up till recently, I've been very, very reactive to life. So, for example, the job I have now that I started at the age of 28 is the first job I've ever had that was actually a permanent job. Every other job I've ever had was a short-term contract or a casual job or something like that. So when you're living in that kind of situation, it's kind of a day-to-day kind of, you don't know, you might be in one of those casual contracty type jobs for a while, but then bam, you never know when it's going to finish. So it finds it a bit hard to plan for the future sort of thing. So, sorry, I'm rambling a bit here, but the point where I'm at right now, like even doing this course is the most far ahead I've ever had to think. So I'm doing a job which I really like and would like to continue and be quite comfortable doing for a long time. But by doing this course, I'm preparing for an eventuality that may or may not happen where in a few years down the track, I no longer enjoy where I'm working and I want to go further to somewhere else kind of thing. So I see what I'm doing right here as a path towards that. So I'm kind of looking, for the first time in my life, I actually have a chance to kind of look 4 or 5 years down the track. And I don't know where I'm going with all that. But that's just where I'm at the moment. So I don't know, this is the first time I've had a, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or where are you preparing yourself for? So I don't know, it's been reactive, and now I'm actually pushing ahead and going, okay, what do I actually want in the next 5 years, 10 years? So I don't know.
Grab that back. I encourage you to come back to these 3 questions over the break, over the next holidays, and think about, let it percolate. See if you get anywhere on it. Yeah.
I think it's still frustrating though that even if you have a sense of your priorities and your goal and what you want to do, I don't think our society is very open to it even today, to allowing some of those things to happen. I've been so frustrated because I want to work, but I don't want to devote my entire life to work. I have a lot of other things that I love doing and that are important to me. But I think it's almost impossible to get, I feel like it's almost impossible to get a job that is going to be a worthwhile, meaningful job if you're not prepared to devote your entire life to it. That's what I'm finding at this stage.
There are plenty of meaningful jobs in the library that are balanced jobs.
Yay, that's
I guarantee you, having worked there for so many years, every single day I worked in the library, it was a good day. Every day I walked in those doors and I walked up those stairs, I'm like, I'm working in a fucking library. I'm working in a library. I'm going to talk to librarians. I'm going to talk to students. I'm going to find out new things. I'm going to come across books. There are trolleys of books. It's like in the chocolate factory, I'm like, here's a trolley of books over here, la la la. And someone's like, would you like to take any of these books home? I fear that they're going to be in a tip by the end of the day. And you're like, la la la, I'm being paid to look at these books, It was always a good day, and you can work part-time, you can work casual, you can choose the weekend shifts, there's a lot of artists in library professions, a lot of poets, a lot of musicians, a lot of people who dedicate a lot of their life to things that are not working as librarians. Lots of creatives, huge number of creatives in libraries, huge, and in the professions generally. It is a really great place to become the thing that you wish you could be. So I can tell you that for sure. Huge scope, very wide scope of opportunity, and you can close the door at the end of the day. There are management roles in libraries that are very intense, and those are choices people make, but they are not the only ways. And you can make a living wage in a library working the 7.25 hours a day. So, yeah. Except if you're what?
Except if you're an A in the school library, you can have term time.
Yes.
And, it's really very difficult.
There are some terrible working conditions as well. Terrible working conditions. And there are some working conditions, there are some terrible contracts that are very inappropriate for people, and there are other people who really like having part-time work and don't need to work, right? I'm not one of those people. I have to work. But that's okay because I'm working in cool ways. It's fun. But, you know, there are multiple different ways to work. And if you know that your passion is art, if you know that you're consistently writing art outcomes, if nothing was a barrier to you, it ought to be motivating for you to focus and reconsider the way you're approaching anything in your life that isn't towards the thing that you really value. It should change the way you manage your time. It should mean that you give yourself something like art rewards, like I am going to give myself an hour in the studio if I get 200 words done of this assignment, right? I mean, seriously, to get into the studio, not only without guilt, but as this is my reward. This is me becoming me. Because by in virtue of me getting this qualification, I buy myself the flexibility to have an occupation that's meaningful, that doesn't stress me out, that I can work out and get home at the end of the day and be the artist I want to be too. Start putting into practice the work balance experiences that you want to have in your future. Do them today. Okay. So causes of time mismanagement. There's 3 different causes. What's that? That's really funny. I want a picture of the cat. Okay. Causes of time mismanagement. So really there's probably 3 major different causes of time mismanagement. There's psychological causes, environmental causes, and social causes. Environmental causes can be many different things. They can be technological. I saw people on the Google Plus community saying when I try to write, my fonts change on my Word document and my paragraphs change and drives me bananas and I spend all this time on formatting. If that's your problem, a couple of different strategies. First, do your rough draft on paper. Or use a text editing file that doesn't have any options for formatting. You know, just write in plain text. Most of the hard thing of writing is actually just writing, and deal with the formatting at the end if you can. Try to put off the things that don't need to be dealt with right that second. And if for you the formatting glitches are so glaring and emotional that they're affecting your ability to write, then change the way you write in terms of choosing like a pen and paper that won't give you the irritating emotional feedback that you're getting while you're trying to write on the computer. You can't solve all of your problems at once. You're always going to have some level of issue, technologically speaking, with something. So try to resolve some technological problems at some point during your semester, but don't think that in one semester you're going to become proficient at EndNote, HTML, website editing, and paragraph formatting, and image citations, and it's not all going to happen at once. So try to be nice to yourself and to choose your battles and to allow yourself to not be perfect. It can be really hard, but choose the things that your teachers are really looking for, and you'll find that perfect formatting is probably not going to be the thing that's the most important thing. And if you need help, seek other people to help you. Don't spend, if it's something you're really bad at, then ask someone who's good at it to help you, if that's your mode of learning. I put up on the Google Plus community a digital learning self-assessment quiz. It kind of categorizes you into a kind of digital learner. Some people like to read instruction booklets, some people like YouTube videos, some people like their son or daughter to help them, or like their husband to help them, or so whatever or asking a librarian, whatever your mode of improvement is, make sure you're actually acting on that. Don't sit there by yourself stewing over something that's hard, thinking that you're supposed to solve it all by yourself. It's just not the truth of the modern world with all the change that's going on. It's just not the case that everybody else out there knows what to do here and you're the only one who doesn't. Sometimes the most basic things drive us bananas. I only just learned how to change my name on Adobe Connect, and I've been teaching with this for a year now. So, go me. So I'm not perfect either, but I do know to tell myself, I have to give myself a Vygotskian little lesson, be like, now what would Kate be good to Kate say? She would say, ask for help, If you feel that you've got psychological difficulties, being nice to yourself or good to yourself or prioritizing yourself, go see someone. QT has counselling services. They're free for students. You're paying for this education. Go get a counsellor. Go talk to somebody about it. Find out. See if you can make any progress. Ask for help. Say, look, I've got anxiety. It's really getting me down, or I'm getting depressed. They're like, you on Facebook all the time? Yes. Okay, how about we try this new thing? Whatever is going on for you, if your life is not working for you, then you need to change something. It's kind of a golden rule. You can change little things. If writing in front of your little laptop screen is not working for you, try finding a big screen on campus and writing so that you've got a better vista in front of you. Or print out your documents. Or buy yourself an iPad and have your reading on one side and your screen in front of you. Or invest $200 and buy an additional screen and a keyboard to plug into your laptop at home. Put more effort into your writing environment. Put more effort into your research environment. Artists have studios where they spend a lot of energy making that space a sacred space for creation. They have fabrics, they have shapes, they have sculptures, they have colours, they have gentle breezes and hammocks and cushions and a sense of possibility. And yet, as writers, often people write in horrible conditions where there's no effort whatsoever in their space. There's no ritual or habitual or beauty about it anymore. It used to be about writing desks and fountain pens and parchment and sacredness and experience. But writing today can be torturous and agonizing and crumpled up and on the couch and interrupted and covered in cats. So try to treat yourself like a writer that is worthy of a space to write in. So look at your environment. Because often we don't want to spend time in places that we are putting ourselves in order to achieve things like assignments. So don't do that. Put yourself in environments that make you feel good. If a cafe makes you feel inspired, go find the coolest cafe in Brisbane. Go West End and hang out with people with dreadlocks and be like, haha, look at me, I'm a student, you know. If you love the water, for God's sake, get on the train and you've got a laptop and go sit by the water and write. You know, like if you have choice over where you are when you study, well, seriously, do like a little data analysis right now. Like look at where you have been when you've tried to do your assignments and the conditions you've been in. If you're not feeling as productive as you'd like to be, try changing the way you are putting yourself into horrible positions. Dark, dank, not enough coffee, not enough tea, too much chocolate, too little chocolate, too many babies, too many cats, too many dogs, not enough cats, not enough dogs. Too many dishes, yes, get away from the dishes, for God's sake, woman. Get yourself an enormous pencil case, enabled to travel with pens, you know. Buy yourself a big backpack that can fit your enormous sketch note diary, you know. Like, don't restrict yourself because of, like, handbag size or whatever. Like, you can buy a $3 enormous beach tote bag from Kmart that will carry your enormous art supplies as you travel to the ocean to do your library assignment and watch whales or something. Libraries, yes, if you like libraries, for God's sake, go to the State Library. They have really nice furniture. QT Library, nice furniture. Going to the different libraries in of itself is an educational experience. Set yourself some weird treasure hunt. I'm going to work in every regional library in Brisbane, and buy yourself a map of Brisbane and put little stickers on there and be like, give yourself a sticker every time you go to one of these regional libraries, you know? I mean, it's just cool ways to enjoy your life, you know? Okay. And social. There's lots of social reasons we don't work. And we have to manage our social things. Women in particular are often the social go-to people for their families. They're the ones that their families contact when there's a crisis, or they have to organise things. They have to organise the birthdays and the Christmases. You know, Santa brings the presents, but the women buy them all. You know, there are gender distinctions in social roles which prevent women from achieving sometimes. So you might need to tell someone in your life the way you're not going to be that person socially for a period of time while you prioritise things like education. Or explain to your family the things that you will or you won't be doing this year. Put restrictions and limits. Let's just say I won't be available before 1 p.m. I'm turning my phone off. That's my me time. I will be available to the family to rescue everybody after 1 p.m. You know. But if your life is not working for you, then you need to change something. There are also legitimate situations where study is not working for you for whatever reason, and that's okay too. You know, you can defer, delay, withdraw, change your mind and come back. It's not a big deal. You know, I quit out of my PhD to have babies, and then I re-enrolled, and then I totally rocked it and got a new supervisor and wrote an amazing dissertation, and it was great and wonderful, and I was ready to do it at that point. I just wasn't ready to do it before that point. That's just my life, my choice. So you're not a failure if you change your enrollment or change your decision or your journey. It is scary when you get older, yes.
As you get older and you're starting to go, I'm running out of time, I'm not going to get a job.
No, but then you see some YouTube video from Facebook of like some 80-year-old yogi woman who came to yoga at 65 in the retirement village and's now become an inspirational 80-year-old yoga instructor, and like it isn't too late. No. It isn't. No. It's never too late. Never too late. Never too late. Okay. So, you know, I think it's worth asking yourself, how do you make stuff happen? So in the things that you have managed to make happen, what did you put in place to make them happen? And are you being as zealous or prioritizing for yourself, for your study goals, as you were for other things? You know, how did you... So think of something where you did achieve and that you've set your mind to something and you were diligent about achieving it. Some people find that they haven't done it for years because they've just been reactive for years. I think this term reactive is a really good one. We can get into the habit of just putting out the fires. But I know some people who, marathons, triathlons, they get married, organising a wedding.
I think you've got to sort out your motivators. You know, what is your motivation? Is it self-satisfaction? Is it somebody else believing in you and presenting what you believe they want you to? Is it setting an example for somebody else, or is it just saying, yes, I can do this, so I will?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. And I think motivation is really important to tack down. So I mean, as we've sort of identified in some senses here, some people are doing this degree to enable other parts of their existence to flourish. It's not to say they don't value the librarianship, but that there's this balance in your life. Others have identified family is really important, like I need an income to afford to go visit my family, to support them. So when you are trying to plan your essays or your assignments, and if you get frustrated or you're tired and you're like, why am I doing this anyway? Or like to stop you in that procrastination where it's like, oh, I signed up for this degree and here I am, and I pretty much will do anything except this assignment right now. Like I seem to have been able to I was supposed to spend the entire day writing this essay. I've managed to do everything but. Why? Do I hate what I'm doing? Am I so bad at knowing myself that I've made a decision to sign up for a thing that I really don't even want to do? And that's where you should have this moment where you're like, oh no, that's right. That's right. This is the step I take to become that artist that I want to be. Because at the end of today, all I have to do is these 2 paragraphs, just 2, not too much, just 2. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to create art tonight. Oh yeah. So in the day that you live, you're activating those dreams that are bigger than the degree itself. Or you call your mum, or you Skype your mum, or do something to connect, or write a letter home or something to keep those connections going.
Can I just say something? It might be really cheesy, and maybe I'm revealing a bit too much about myself, but as an undergraduate, I'd always do like positive affirmations because Miranda Kerr wrote a book about it, so I totally did it. And they were really like day to day, like I will smile today and things like that. But as this semester started, they've moved into like lifelong affirmations of things like that, of my motivation, of why I'm doing this course, of my commitment to my family. And I have these cute little pink and purple cards, and I type them up and cut them out, and I read them every day and every morning. So then when you wake up and you're like, oh, I have to do this assignment, you're like, oh, I get to do this assignment because I am going to move into this amazing career where I can also value my family as well. and it just makes such difference to the way that you go to bed and then attack the next day. But it is a bit cheesy.
That's great. No, well, perhaps, but we can be Oprah here. I mean, look, for me, the reason I was able to do my PhD was because I had a son. It's very simple. I wanted to be able to talk to my son and say, Mummy is living her dream. And I wasn't able to focus on myself before I had my son in a positive way. After I had my son, it was like every minute I spent not looking after him, I felt I owed my family for me to live my best self in some weird way. I became more efficient through that desire to be a good role model and to be good to myself. I didn't want him at my funeral to be like, well, Mum, she did a lot of washing, she did the dishes. I wanted him to get up and be like, yeah, she made tea light labyrinths in our backyard. For me, what I answered in this, when I thought about what I would do if I only had 6 months to live, I wrote, build a tree house. That was important to me. And I was like, huh, I had no idea. And when so these sorts of things, I think. Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, what I want to do if I couldn't fail, a conceptual artist. So art is still in the back of my brain somewhere. I'm still struggling because I keep having these crazy inventions I don't actually know how to manifest. So my problem at the moment is less to do with my feeling that I could make it. It's more like I don't even know if I can beat the nails into the wood to make the manifestations. But yeah. Illustrator information cards. Sorry, is he talking about? I don't know. I think it's the other Kate, Ellie. I think Kelly's responding to other Kate. That would be very cool. We should totally have affirmation cards. We need affirmation cards on the Google Plus community. Oh, that would be nice. Library suitable. Yes, okay. Library suited affirmation cards. Good. Yes, that's what we need. That'd be so nice. Okay. All right. So moving on. So binge studies. So I just want to take a moment to tell each other. Describe your most epic binge study session to your neighbour. How many hours did it last? How much sleep did you get? Where were you? The highs, the lows, and what did you achieve? So online, you guys tell each other online, and in person, you guys take a minute to have a chat. And some of the folks online are speaking of being plotters, not bingers, and I think that's absolutely great. And tell us about your plotting.
Yeah, I've done that. Done the idea of what YouTube. You know, I find it really relaxing. I'm strange. A lot of my friends will iBox and say, yeah, I know shirts. Why? I see that enjoy it.
So who's got the longest binge? How many hours? What's that? All night. All night. All night. Yep. Yep. Who doesn't do the binge? Who's not a binger?
You're a plotter?
Yeah, I just think that, I don't know why I'm very organised. Like it's 30 years in nursing's done it to me.
I don't think there's any criticism here of plotting, by the way. I'm not trying to advocate the binge, but what I actually do want to point out to everyone is that if you've ever actually handed something in, you're doing okay. However you do it, whether you do it through a binge or you do it through a plod, whether you sometimes plod, you sometimes binge, when your house gets hit by lightning, if you manage to hand it in, you've done really well. There's a lot of people in the world and in life who don't ever hand it in, metaphorically speaking, or literally, right? So it's important to not chastise yourself too much if you submit an assignment and you've managed to get that assignment done in a way where you judge yourself that that's not the ideal way to do it. It's going to sound cliched, but hey, we're talking about affirmations here, so I'm going to keep it going. You know, it is a bit cliched, but there is things you can learn about yourself for next time in terms of project management with however you got yourself to the situation you're in. So I'm just going to move on now to a bit of project management stuff, but it's important when you look at the project managed stuff to be realistic about your history, because your own history of achieving and the way you do it will give you a lot of insight into the way you should plan for the future. So I'm just going to skip this sharing advice on binge study, tips, tricks, pitfalls, advice, warnings and suggestions, only because we're running a little bit short on time, but please feel free to offer your binge recommendations to your colleagues online. Or your plotting recommendations. The plotters, you know, 10 binge study tips or 10 best plotting tips, okay? I encourage us to do clickbait on the Google Plus community to help us out. But I mean, the reason I mention it is project management, these are the basic principles of project management that are worth considering applying to the way you plan your assignments. You'll have a deliverable, in most cases an assignment. You want to estimate the number of hours it's going to take you to get that assignment done. I encourage you to try to keep track of how much time you're spending on assignments in order to give yourself data to then plan the next assignment. Because often we misjudge, often the reason we end up binging is because we misjudge how much time it's going to take. And so often when we start a degree, we're really bad at doing the time management and we're binging a lot. But we can sometimes improve our binge level as we go through a degree, or our life gets crazier and changes and therefore we start binging more, right? I mean, you know, I've now got 2 children and it's bananas. Like the things I was doing before I taught today was just, you can't even. I was covered in yogurt and maybe I'm still covered in yogurt, I don't know. I was cooking dinner, racing out the door. So life changes, so you have to change with it. So you need to estimate the time you need. You need to come up with a workflow. So look at your calendar, your semester, and kind of come up with a plan for when you're going to approach the work for each part of what you need to do for your assignment. Break your assignment down into milestones. These are small, achievable components that you create mini goals for and mini due dates. You put those due dates in your calendar. Achieve this, finish that. And identify risks. And that means, you know, Basically, for me, I have a kind of various rules of thumb with risk management. For every month, I put a week's worth of risk in, right? So I plan 3 weeks of work, and then there's like 1 week spare. Because I just know in any month, I'm going to lose a week's worth of days probably in work. So I just plan it, you know? And in every week I'll lose a day, in every month I'll lose a week. That's rough. Depending on who you are and what your life is like, it's probably similar. That's why you want to plan your assignments in enough time in advance. It might only take you, 40 hours to do it, but you might need those hours to spread out over a lot of weeks in order to accommodate for the time management issue. So these are the basic principles of project management that you should think about before you start an assignment. And you should modify as you go. So if new risks turn up. So, if you've got a family member that's sick and there's a chance that there's something that you need to do to fly somewhere or to look after them, plan contingencies and arrangements in advance. I expect all students to probably need about 2 weeks off in every semester. So I try to arrange assignments so that if students miss 2 weeks at any point, they shouldn't be too challenged by that. Like that it shouldn't affect their outcomes. That's why I really like my students to have an actual break over the semester break. I'm like, that's important. Everyone needs downtime, crikey. And we can work in bigger chunks at different times, but you shouldn't have to be expected to work at this top speed every single day. It's just not realistic for 3 months. It's just not. So build for yourself risk and be accommodating of your needs psychologically to balance art and your information work. There's some really good time management resources and many other resources on StudyWell. QT Library has a suite of resources, and studywell.library.qt.edu.au. If you go to the QT Library homepage and click on Student, and then on the right-hand side there's a menu thing, and there's these words that you probably don't know what they mean. So StudyWell is this suite of resources. They have stuff on reading, note-taking, researching, writing, referencing, citing, working in teams, presenting, exam preparation. They've got this groovy little assignment calculator to help you plan the timing. It's a little bit undergraduate-y, so there are some parts of it that you might look at it and be like, wow, does Kate think I'm a complete idiot? But it really depends on where you're at in terms of coming back to do your masters and what you've been doing in your life and what kinds of help you're looking for. And I think things like referencing, if you haven't done referencing for 20 years, then you might find this really useful. So pick and choose there. I recommend checking those out. In terms of time management, I think setting time limits is really important, especially in the days of the internet-enabled phones. The Pomodoro technique I'm a huge fan of, 25-minute blocks. Plan anything for 25 minutes because it's able to be done.
That's changed my life.
Tell us more.
I'm an absolute convert to the Pomodoro technique. I've put an app on my iPad, and I just find, days when I don't feel like doing anything, I can still go, I'll just do 25 minutes. It's stopped me from eating constantly while I'm studying because I used to be getting up, going to the kitchen and back and getting, just distractions.
Yeah.
But now I can sit still for 25 minutes and then I have a 5-minute break, and often I'll go, I might just do a bit of yoga in my 5-minute break rather than constantly going to the kitchen. And then before I know it, I've done 2 hours worth of solid work, and I'm just loving it. I've just found it just so good for me to actually get stuff done. Very good.
I was just going to make a suggestion about time management and work, life, uni balance, that kind of thing. Obviously, uni's your priority. Like for me, coming to class is really important. So I'm like, Tuesday, I'm here. Wednesday, I'm here. Monday, I don't work. So I'm like, all right, I'm in the library all day Monday, whether I get anything done or not. I'm doing a 9 to 5 type thing, doing that. But at the same time, I don't know, you shouldn't leave out those other priorities of things that you enjoy, like whether it's family or other hobbies or doing art or, for example, I play in a band, so I've got band practice on Saturday. I'm like, all right, well that time's blocked out. No matter what happens, I'm going to go do that. So I've got to, if I've got any study that I'm doing, I have to have it done before then, or I've got an assignment due mid-semester the same weekend as my dad's 60th. I'm going to that, so I'm going to have to think about, all right, I've got to finish that assignment before I go to that, because I don't know. So like having those other priorities of this block of untouchable time, whether it's, I guess, time that you spend with your kids if you've got a family, or time you spend doing a hobby or something, like still have that as untouchable as well, and try not to have your study encroach on that. And I guess you have to go think, right, how do I best not have that encroach and manage your time that way, maybe? So you got those reward things are really important, and you don't give those up. You go, okay, what else do I have to sacrifice or whatever, so I get uni stuff done as well?
Yeah, that's really good advice. Really, really solid advice to put that into your calendars. Yeah.
May I add, in the study well, there is something I've used every week since I started, which is just a weekly planner. So it starts at 7 and ends at 10. Mine starts at 10 and ends at 1 a.m. So you can change it. And yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but every Sunday night I will do that, and I will block out the times I have work, the times I volunteer, the times I know I'll be spending with my family, the time for church. And then sometimes it's scary because you're like, whoa, I only have those hours. But then you're like, whoa, I only have those hours. So that's when I do my study.
Yeah.
And it just helps so much.
And I think if you do that planning, that's where the recreation, the pleasure activities are so vital, because otherwise you look at this wall of to-dos and you're like, my entire life is work. Whereas in your to-dos is these marvelous, wonderful rewards, then you're like, this is a life worth living. Yeah, good, great.
It shouldn't even,
No?
like, it shouldn't even be rewards. Sometimes, like, some of those things, like, it's absolutely necessary for your mental health.
No, right, they help.
Actually do that.
Yeah, I actually color code things like that are health inducing. Green, like I have a green color scheme, and that means that I psychologically treat things like yoga as health as opposed to recreation, or going to a movie, like a art house movie by myself and with a bottle of wine or something. Haven't done that in a while, but you're like, no, this is good for my mental health. This is not just idle. This is, this will enable me to actually work harder on my assignment tomorrow if I go to this movie with this bottle of wine tonight. Okay, great. That's really good suggestions, guys. Okay, I'm so sorry. Look at the time. Yikes. Okay, no time. Okay, let me go through this in a scarily fast fashion and apologize profusely. I knew we would run out of time tonight. Let's continue on Google+, okay? And I will be available. Please ask me to help in any way I can. So, if you're using EndNote, you can certainly use the notes section of EndNote or Mendeley or any of these bibliographic management tools to keep notes. It's a really good way to keep track of your notes, because if you're like me, if you're not using that type of tool, then you write documents which have like notes for assignment blah, and you have like multiple Word documents running, and you're like, oh, they all cross over, and then when it comes to actually writing the assignment, it's too hard to know where the stuff is. Whereas this is a database, it's searchable, you can search for any of the words you've actually got, like the notes, any of the words that are in those notes fields can be searched upon, right? So it means you've got your own index to search under. So that's quite clever. So that's a good way. You can use any kind of, lots of products out there for note taking. Evernote, for example, some people are huge fans of using Evernote. And so you can try some of those apps if you like. Use visual note taking. So back to the idea of these, get physical, use space, use lots of different kinds of paper and images, because you'll remember the ideas better. So the other thing to keep in mind with notes is if you don't ever remember what you wrote in your notes, they're not a very good mnemonic device. So see if you can come up with a better means by which to take notes that you might actually remember the content of those notes. Because remember, learning's about kind of getting the stuff into your head, not just having it out there on a piece of paper. So you want to have that connection between your head and your notes. Keep a notes diary. I'm a huge fan of having a Moleskine for time management, where I actually keep track of how many, this is a bit nerdy, it's a bit of a data nerd thing, but like, started work 8:51, Pomodoro, aiming for 100 words, get to the end of that. 173 words, and I keep track, and this is how I wrote my dissertation, and I hit 50,000 words, you know, and like actually having this leather-clad diary keeping track of me trying to write every day and then sometimes failing to write and writing in angry letters how crap everything was and the world was crap and full of crap sauce. You know, and then I can look back at this diary and like it's like this beautiful kind of weird data narrative of my emotions as I went through the highs and the lows of writing my PhD and getting to the end, and I'm like, oh, it feels like now like an archival document that I want to like I actually have this strange bulky folder of weird dissertation memorabilia from like writing my dissertation where I'm like, should be in an archive. Needs to be climate controlled, humidity controlled. No mildew will get to these notes, you know, and like the cards where my friend gave me this little card with a cup of tea on it and she's like, there's nothing that can't be solved with tea, and, you know, I'm like, you know, it's about the people, the journey, you know. Turn your journey into this kind of archival thing, you know. It can make it really powerful and meaningful. Use your notes, use a table. This is quite good if you feel like you've got particular ideas you want to investigate and you want to keep track of them in a logical fashion. It'll help you like look at different articles but the same ideas within each of those articles, and this is super great for organising, like preparing for paragraphs, because if you throw your notes in this order then you can just kind of collate them into a finished paragraph really quite easily this way. Which is why it's good to know what the structure of your assignments should be. Okay, writing. Okay, how to write better. These are the 3 books I highly recommend on writing. So please buy these. Like seriously, go get a Kindle version and have the Kindle Cloud Reader open, or buy the physical copy. On Writing Well, the latest edition, it's like up to the 8th edition or something. On Writing Well is the most wonderful, wonderful book I've almost ever read. The guy that wrote this has spent so much energy crafting the sentences in this book that every single sentence reads beautifully, and it tells you how to write better. So clearly, so concisely, and to cure you of so many of the habits that we have. And each chapter is tiny and beautiful and constructed and perfect. And you're like, oh, I need to spread this chapter to other people. It's beautiful. It's not awful. It's not like, you know, reading some horrible grammar book. It's just a beautiful moment. Yeah, no, do it. If you read only one book on writing in your life, this will change your way of writing forever. It will make you richer because most of the people who make money know how to write well. Why wouldn't you do it? This is an amazing book. It's got the worst title of any book in the world, but it is the authoritative guide for academic writing. It tells you how to write an abstract, how to write a conclusion. It has it all very logically ordered. Whenever you're like, I just don't know how to write a good one of these, it will tell you how to write a good one of those. It will give you help on referencing. It will give you help on everything. So it is an amazing book. Yeah.
Do you know if the used, well, you wouldn't know about the used bookshop necessarily, but would you know if the bookshop on campus has these books?
I doubt it highly because the bookshops on campus today only really buy books for a specific unit if they're prescribed reading or mandatory reading. The library definitely has them. So there's about 3 or 4 copies of Writing Well by Zinza, and you could use bonus to request copies if you wanted to borrow them from other libraries. But I really feel like, you know, spend $100 on buying all 3 of these books and read them. Just read them. They're amazing. Actually read them. Do it. This one you just want to jump into. This one you wouldn't want to read cover to cover. This is like... Yeah, oh, yeah, read them all. No, the top one, On Writing Well, read every word. Every single word. It's the most amazing book. You will get to the end of that book and you'll say, I want the next book. There is no next book. A manual for writers, dip into it, use the index, use the contents to find the thing that you need to help with writing, and then just do what they tell you to do. It's amazing. It's like a complete step-by-step. It's like you don't have to think. You just do what they tell you.
Would you be able to recommend any books on research as well, you know, on the Google Plus community? Yeah.
Well, of course. Yes, no, yeah. And then Stephen King on writing is just a rollicking good read, okay? I mean, it's amazing. The story of his life is amazing. The way he became a writer is amazing. Very inspirational. There's a lot of great writers who write on writing. The blog Brain Pickings is an amazing blog which has excerpts from people writing about writing. So Brain Pickings, you should totally look up brain pickings and have a look at some of the stuff there. It is so beautiful and really inspiring and make you feel like, oh, this is what writing can be. A romantic, beautiful thing. But in terms of help, practice is the most important thing. So dedicate more time to writing. Read your own words out aloud. Revise more often. Practice. That's simple. Want to get better? Do more. Get others to read your writing. So book a study solutions appointment at the QT library or a language advisor appointment if you're international or English is not your first language. Get a friend to read a paragraph. Get somebody to read something that you've written. It's the only way to really improve, to get feedback. And only ask people to read a paragraph. Never send whole assignments to people. You'll put them to sleep. Nobody wants to read an attachment, but everyone will read a paragraph. Send a paragraph in the body of an email, not as an attachment. Just say, could you just put your eyes over this paragraph? Choose one paragraph. The lessons you learn from the feedback on one paragraph you can apply to the rest of your writing because your sins will be replicated. And read books on how to write. That'll help you learn the structure, the style, and the technique. And it is up to you, and nobody will help you do this except for yourselves. It has to come from your own space to learn how to write better. How to reference better. Use QT SiteWrite. Really, do it. Ask a librarian. Visit the APA blog. That's a really good piece of advice. The APA style blog is a fantastic place for weird referencing moments. That's how I learned how to do weird image referencing and stuff like that, because they're always giving you updates on the latest weirdness. And buy or borrow a book on referencing. Just buy the damn book. It's like $80 or something. You know, I mean, geez, most of education today, you don't have to buy books anymore. Buy a book. Have the book. That's what we do in the library. We all have the copy of the APA book, and when students ask us what the answer is, we go to the book. Become like a librarian. Have the book. Further help. Talk to QT Library for Academic Skills Assistants. Call them on the phone. Like, literally, you can call them on your mobile phone. Be like, hi. They'd be like, hi. They're like, hi, librarian. Hi, student. I've got a weird question. Great. But just wanting to help you. Do it. It's free. Have a chat. Use chat online. I got pissed off I couldn't find dictionaries today, and I'm like, where's the dictionaries? And I wrote on library chat, and they were like, go here, go here, go here. I'm like, oh. But they were very nice. Email. You can send them an email or visit somebody in person. Book a class. Book an EndNote class. Study Solutions are free 25-minute appointments. There's drop-in sessions during the day, and there's also bookable appointments in the future. So if you've got an assignment that's due and you're like, I would really love someone to read a paragraph of my assignment, book a Study Solutions appointment, have an academic skills advisor, look at your work. Such a good value. It's free. It's amazing. All it requires you to do is book it in. It will make a big difference. Thank you. 10 minutes late. We did it. Sorry? Grace is a quokka. It is a quokka. Thanks for surviving. Yeah, but let's keep this going in Google Plus because I think it's good stuff. And flag me if you want me specifically. That'll help. And you can email me too. Feel free to email me if you've got a question. And have a great night and great week. And yeah. Cool. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I took anyone else's call. Just apologize in advance.
Class next week. Oh, class next week.
Wait, there's no online class.
Yes, please say.
Yeah. I'm just going through your reflections, your beginning of the semester reflection, and trying to analyze them and getting the themes out of them to show you how you all think information professional is. Right? Okay? Good. And we will make it available so you have something to read and then reflect upon that. So it's reflecting upon reflection.
Yeah, and I'm also going to go through everyone's stuff and come up with some comments that are not going to be necessarily individual, but you should be able to tell. But I'm just going to make some comments, yeah.
My daughter